Good afternoon. Welcome to European Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Stanford University. Today is Monday, February 12th. This is session 5 in our 2018 season. My name is Burton Lee, and today we're very pleased to present an all-Swiss session. So as I mentioned today, our focus is on Swiss startups and corporates, growing national startup ecosystems via corporations and universities. We're very pleased to have 3 speakers with us today. Penny Schiffer has flown in all the way from Zurich last night with Mitch and her 3 kids. So baby is there, sleeping. 2, 3. Hi guys, thanks all for supporting Penny and her coming here. Leah von Bitter, also out of Zurich, but based here in the Bay Area, doing very interesting women's fertility, women's health startup. Andrea Fossati Parkri, out of ETH Zurich, also here working with Swissnacks for a few days. We're very lucky to get all 3 of you, so thank you very much for supporting our session here. Yes.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. I'm very glad that I can be here and share some of the things that are going on in Switzerland. And last night we discussed several points from your presentation where I should put a bit of, shed some light upon. I'm here with my family today, so I have a baby. I thought it's never too early to come to Stanford, so she should have a look and enjoy the campus. Unfortunately, she's asleep, but I think she can still digest something, and the other 2 boys are kind of tired because it's after midnight where we came from last night. So, yeah. As Burton already said, Switzerland is a very beautiful country, so that's my thesis for today. It has some world-class research and foundation for growth, but there is some entrepreneurial potential also to be unlocked. So let's say it's a lot going on, but when it comes to commercializing some of the things, we realized that there is still a lot to do, or something to do, but there is hope. So during the last years, there has been some nice developments, and I will give some insights on them too. So yeah, that's me today. I'm wearing different shoes, but these are the shoes that I wore one day when I went to the Swisscom office to the board. So you see all the old mobile phones. Who of you has ever had one of those phones? Oh, still a lot. So there is some time before the smartphone, but that's the old age. And Swisscom has, of course, been present all over the time. So Swisscom is the leading telco operator. I will give you some insights about them. But it's a history of moving from the old, more hardware-focused business to a more software-driven, experience-driven business. And I have put in some things that are me. So the shoes are different from what you would normally see in a Swiss office. So I'm running a division in Swisscom, a lab called Pirates Hub that is bringing innovation into Swisscom and that is even doing spin-offs. So it's been established 2 years ago by my boss, Roger Wüthrich, and the idea is to really have a chief digital officer who does not only do some innovation circus or some innovation events, but is actually creating additional business for Swisscom. And sometimes we have to do things that are not as they used to be. So that's why I put in the fancy shoes, because it means to also challenge a lot of traditional corporate activities. I'm also investing my own money. So I think that's quite interesting and makes me relate to the universities, the EPFL and the ETH, so I've invested in some of the startups there. So let's cross fingers that everything goes well. And some of the technology in recent years has been acquired by US companies, for example. So there have been a good number of cases where the technology developed there was valuable and useful for people in a bigger context. So how did I get there? Why am I involved in technology, innovation, entrepreneurship? So last night we had a discussion about families, and I was able to get those pictures this morning from my sisters back in Europe. These are my grandparents from my mother's side. So they have been entrepreneurs in a very different age. So my grandfather, actually, he started his business of a bus travel agency to show all of Europe to the people of Germany after the war. And he had his first bus, which is actually in this picture here. He bought it in 1938. So it's really a long tradition of my family, also from my father's side, of being entrepreneurs, but in a very different age. And I have always been passionate and, let's say, affected by this kind of entrepreneurship activities. Here you can see me. So I was doing some business activities when I was 8, when I bought tomato seeds for 1 Deutschmark. I could get several hundred. I would plant them, water them for weeks, grow the plants, and then sell them at the market for a very good profit. So I could easily make 300 Deutschmarks out of 1 Deutschmark with a lot of work and some good idea, because I was there earlier before the tomato season was, so everybody was happy to buy my tomatoes because 3 weeks later it would have been too late. So it was a nice business for an 8-year-old kid. And then when the first home computers came out, my father would always buy everything to explore it, and we would start coding and get involved in the technology there. But it was a different time for a girl. It wasn't so easy to relate to the tech scene, and sometimes we would not be, let's say, part of the group that was doing all this deep tech coding. I can do it like this. Yeah, so what I will talk about now is the innovation, open innovation approach of Swisscom. I will talk about Switzerland's deep tech strength, so some of the technology and some of the areas where Switzerland has a very good foundation and is famous for, and also has developed in recent years, and then some thoughts about how the entrepreneurial potential could be unlocked. So it's a lot of slides. Some of them I will only talk about briefly, but Burton asked me to give it a broader picture, and I'm very happy to do so. And also we can discuss in the session afterwards, in the dinner. I'm also happy to give more insights. I have brought some books from Switzerland too, some reports. So all of them, all of them can later...
Swiss Venture Capital report.
Yeah, all of them can later be taken except this one. So I will just put it here because I need that back. But the rest is for you guys to have.
Startup Guide 2017, 1 copy only.
Yeah, the guy was too late sending his copies, so they will be back home
and
waiting for me.
Switzerland.
Yes. Good. So I guess not many people would know Swisscom. It's very easy to explain what we do. So we are the telecom provider of Switzerland, the big one that came out of the government activities and was privatized. Some 20 years ago. So this has been quite a journey. And 20 years ago, actually, we just established the Silicon Valley outpost of Swisscom here. So we have had an office for the last 20 years to always scout for innovation and be connected to one of the most vibrant ecosystems in the world. And also we have some people here from, yes, so there is also a guest from our outpost here, but I'm not part of the outpost, but only visiting. So from the more than 8 million inhabitants of Switzerland, we have 6.6 million subscribers, so we have quite a bit of market share. Nevertheless, we never felt that it's enough to just be lazy, because you have such a big market share, but things are moving fast, so we always have had to innovate. And you can see this especially in this number. So for the landline subscriptions, as you can imagine, who of you has a landline? Nobody? What? Yeah, me still, because it was not unbundled until recently. But most people, when they move, they quit their landlines because they are happy with the mobile phones. But this means that there is a lot of pressure on the mobile phone companies or on the telephony companies to innovate and find new sources of revenue, because otherwise you cannot keep the revenue that you have. So Swisscom has always been in that mode to get new growth areas, and the revenues that we have today, 70% of this does not come out of stuff that we were having 10 years ago. So although this is kind of being perceived as a slow business, it is a very active business to transform. Okay, so what are we doing in open innovation? So our approach is to embrace different technologies and understand them early on. We have several activities, the outposting in Silicon Valley that I already mentioned, but then also we do corporate venturing. So in Switzerland, we are one of the biggest venture funds, but also when you see the number of transactions that the corporate venture funds globally are doing, we are among the top 20 in the world, not only in telco, but in all corporate venture funds. And this is not only for financial reasons, of course, venture funding has to be financially attractive, but it's also done a lot for the scouting and for the understanding of new technologies. Then what we do in our open innovation activities is make or buy things. So sometimes we partner with the startup so that we can get access to a technology or use some tech earlier and do not have to develop it. We do prototyping and co-creation. I can give you an example of something that we have recently launched. So a lot of people receive unwanted calls on their mobile phones from salespeople, from some other people you don't want to receive the calls. And lately in Switzerland, we can switch this off. So there is like a spam filter for mobile phone calls, and this is realized together with a startup from Switzerland that has not only the list but also the mechanism to make it work in your context. And it was much faster to do it together with a startup than developing this all by ourselves. So maybe we would not even have done it ourselves. Yeah, this is our innovation lab, and this is me and my boss from last Saturday. So we gave a course on how to become a chief digital officer. And the innovation lab, the Pirates Hub, has been very instrumental in not only working together with startups, but also to doing our own spin-off companies and to open up to the community. So this is the home to some Swisscom initiatives, the Swisscom Entrepreneurs, but also it's the home to some of the spin-off companies that we have founded. Just lately, it's a company in the blockchain domain. Switzerland is famous for the cryptocurrencies and blockchain stuff, and we have also had one spin-off company in that area. So this is an initiative I would like to talk about that has been very strong in transforming Swisscom towards more entrepreneurial thinking. So this is a very big box. It's called Kickbox. The boxes actually are very small, but this has been the promotional material that we use inside of Swisscom and also to bring it a bit to the outside world. So inside this box, every entrepreneur from Swisscom finds the resources and material to develop their own idea. So I'm planning also now to do my internal project with Swisscom, develop a startup idea in different stages. So the first stage is you have an idea and you kind of formulate it into a bit of a business plan. Then you come in front of a jury. You have the chance to get a corporate sponsor, someone from the organization who is willing to take your project to the next level. So still, you don't need to spend a lot of money. So it's between $1,000 or $10,000 bucks. And this is enough to build an MVP and get some validation from the market. And then for the next level, the employees who have ideas with a lot of potential, they get the chance to really build the product and potentially even go for a spin-off company. And this program has been inspired by Adobe. They have done an entrepreneurship activity, and we have taken it and developed it further. And the booklet, I will leave it here, but please don't take it because I still needed to put in my own idea. It's blank for now, so it's still a secret, but let's see. And the booklet is something that the entrepreneurs receive when they come to us and can apply to become part of the program. And it has been supported by our highest management, by the HR organization, so that you even get some 20% time, like the Google 20% used to be. This has been our presentation to the board. We noticed that such a bottom-up initiative can get very far, but there is a limit, like a glass ceiling, for all the ideas and for the entrepreneurs to really rise to the top. And therefore, it was really tough. So we had a pipeline of ideas, and we had so many ideas that had the potential to come to this next stage, the gold box. But we noticed that the management support that you need from above is of a different kind. To really invest money, maybe 100,000, 200,000, it's not enough to just propose a great idea, because there's always people who would say, it's not invented here, this is never going to work, and only when you have the board's approval, it can work. So we presented this to the board, and also the whole presentation was done in a different way. Traditionally, when you go to the board of a corporation like Swisscom, you have slides, you have facts and figures, and we made it more into a performance. So that's why we had a very big poster and would make it more into a playful activity. And the funny thing is, since we started, it's only 18 months, we have had 150 people working on their own projects, and we have been approached by a lot of other Swiss corporations to explain what we do, how we do it, what were the challenges. So I believe that in Switzerland we are kind of leading in this way of transforming an organization, but outside of Switzerland, I noticed that that there is more advancement in some other countries. So that's something we discussed last night, that it's quite interesting to see how the different maturity levels are. Okay, so this is a picture that was on the annual report of Swisscom last year, and it's funny that it's actually also Lea and me on the same page, together with Dominique Maigret, our head of venturing. So we have done about 50 investments in different companies, and half of them are really here in Silicon Valley. So through the outpost, we have been able to get access to very good deal flow, but then also to become the pilot customer for some of the companies where we invested here, like a reference customer in Switzerland. Because Swisscom, although it's a telco from a relatively small country, it has a very good global reputation in the telco space because of the very good engineers that we have. So for the startups, it was attractive to have us as a reference client, and it also means that we could work with excellent global startups or Silicon Valley-based startups, because they were happy to grant us access to them. Good. So let's talk about some of the strengths here. Already Burton mentioned the universities, and the landscape is really, it's about EPFL in Lausanne, and it's about Zurich. There are some other institutes that are worth to be mentioned. One of them is CERN. So that's not exactly a Swiss-only institute, but it's a leading physics. I wouldn't even call it an institute, but it's a big installation. It's a big ring where you can have the, what's the English term? The
accelerator. Yeah,
an accelerator. So it's you know, a very, very big ring underground, and it's owned by several. It's like a UN ownership, and it's really about, you know, those two hubs. And then there is also a hub in Basel when it comes to the life science. And Switzerland is a very small country in a way, so you can easily travel here in the morning and go back in the evening. And that's also what I did last week for a training and to connect with the entrepreneurs from EPFL. Although there is a language barrier sometimes, in tech, the connecting language oftentimes is going to be English. So it's not only German required, not only French, but the tech people and the innovators meet in an outside language. Good, so the clusters here. Do I still have a couple of minutes?
You got plenty of time.
Okay, the clusters that, this is a picture of Zurich, by the way. I made the guys walk up all one of the towers of the famous churches of Zurich, so that I could take a picture for you guys. And this is the crowded old town of Zurich. It's let's say it's a lovely place. It's very attractive with tourists, but then also it's a banking hub that attracts a lot of global banking business. So as many of you can imagine, the banking sector is much bigger in Switzerland proportional to the size of the country than in other countries. Here are some of the banks to be mentioned, but there is many more. They have their hub either in Geneva or Zurich, and this has been a strong push also into the whole fintech startup scene. So in Switzerland we have hundreds of fintech startups now, and we also host something called or self-called Crypto Valley. So in a smaller town next to Zurich called Zug, there is the global cryptocurrency and blockchain scene has a very strong hub. This is quite unique, and it's interesting to see that even some guys from the US moved to Switzerland because the whole legislation is very open for this kind of business. Of course, there is some discussion on how you have to make sure that there is no fraud and that everything can work, but generally it's been open to start with crypto currency activities. And even in the city of Zug, you could pay for receiving your official documents, you could pay with Bitcoin. So they have made it possible that you can get your passport paying with Bitcoins. Yes, life science, Roche and Novartis, and maybe also you know Genentech, those companies are world famous. So they have been very famous in drug development in some of the most pressing issues of the world, like cancer. Then there is, coming out of the mechanical expertise, there is some new developments. For example, I put in the drone valleys. There is a strong robotics institute that has created several startups and new systems that can be seen as drones. But also the watch industry and the medtech sector have been pushing forward new ideas. And when it comes to the watches, of course, there is also some smartwatch activity in the traditional watch sector going on. But it's it's a question how this can be enough, or what is going to happen when everything is going to be in your smartwatch, or people are not even wearing watches anymore for the time keeping because they have it on the mobile phone. Like, I'm afraid I don't wear a watch right now, so this has also changed. But when you go into Zurich, Bahnhofstrasse, which is the main shopping street of Zurich, you see a lot of people from outside of Switzerland buying watches in those luxury shops. So there it's still present, but maybe it's not for everybody and not for everyday usage anymore. Yeah, so this is a funny picture because it shows the Google office in Switzerland, or the Zugel office to how it is also called. And in a way, it's one of the reasons I'm here, because my husband was recruited into Google 11 years ago. And this was when we moved to Switzerland and when I got in touch with all the things that I'm talking about right now. And the reason why Google has an office in Switzerland is twofold, or there is many reasons. One is, of course, the university and the talent that you can find in Switzerland, but it's also a good place to attract talent from outside of Switzerland. So if you wanted to build a European engineering office and attract the best people, you have to put it in a place that is strong in quality of life, and Switzerland is always leading in those rankings, and that's why Google decided to make it the biggest engineering office outside of Silicon Valley. Yeah, I mentioned already the rankings. There is another ranking here, which is the Global Innovation Index, and other indexes oftentimes say that Switzerland is #1 when it comes to innovation. Of course, it's ratios like a number of patents against the inhabitants. So a small country, of course, will not have to have as many patents in a total number, but still the ratio is impressive. But when you go further down and break it down for other indices, you find that, for example, commercialization, which is the number of companies started in a country, that Switzerland is only number 40. So there is a gap, and it seems to be difficult to commercialize all of the inventions and all of the patents that come out of the university and research system. And this is ETH University, which is one of the universities where it's not always easy to create a business out of the activities and the new findings. So here's the venture capital report. There has been, it was presented a week ago. It's fresh out of the press here. And it shows that the venture capital invested in Switzerland is on the rise. And there is a bit of a structural change. So initially, there was a lot of activity in the very early seed rounds. Of course, it's good that you have the money to take a project into a product out of university. But if there is no growth capital, you run in a valley of death. And this has been the case in Switzerland for a long time. But recently, we have seen more expansion capital. So there is bigger rounds funded with Swiss capital and more non-traditional VCs. So there has been a lot of corporate money being invested in startups, and also there is a lot of money from business angels, high net worth individuals in Switzerland who would love to invest in startups and who have been quite active lately. Good, yeah. Most of the money goes into biotech. This has two reasons. It's a strong sector, but also you need much more money to do a biotech startup. Okay, I have 3 examples of startups that can, prove my point. So one is a drone startup that is going to develop the software, like the autopilot, or actually the whole bit of the pilot for the autonomous flight vehicles. And this is a guy, Luke, who has been with Google as a senior engineer. He quit, he did his own thing, and he decided to stay in Switzerland because of the combination of people he can see there, the connection to the drone and robot activities, and so far it has been very successful, and it's not an easy thing what he needs to tackle, but he seems to be on a very good track. This is the robotics lab, and this is one of the robots that comes out of it from ETH. So it's the 4-legged robot. It moves like a dog. This looks nice, but then it has a lot of practical advantages. It can walk upstairs. It can move in unknown terrain. It doesn't fall over because of the joints, which are a bit flexible, like our own knees would be. And therefore, this robot has been it gets a lot of attention and has been placed in the area of the Boston Robotics robot company, which had been sold and resold again. So it's this kind of high-tech stuff that you don't find everywhere, and this has been funded and made possible by the ETH robotics people. And the last company that I found was worth mentioning is actually a case of a company that has moved to Switzerland because of the great combination of regulatory bodies, research institutes, and the access to the clinical trials. So it's a pharma company that is developing a specific drug against cancer, and they found that they could speed up their development a lot by moving from the US into Switzerland. Okay, then it's one more minute. Okay, very good. So we have seen a lot of the corporates engaging in Switzerland in the innovation scene, and that's what I find really promising and what I think is important for the whole country to make more out of the innovation that is there. So that's my boss, the CEO of Swisscom, who has been part of a group of other group of CEOs that make it possible to develop new things, but also work closer together with startups. And this should lead not only to more quality startups, but also to have more talent in the ICT and life sciences field. So I have put in some, let's say, initiatives and some resources where you could find out more. So very good has been this Digital Switzerland initiative that aligns all the innovation activities in Switzerland under one umbrella. This has recently came to life only 2 years ago, and this has changed a lot in the ecosystem. It really speeds up what we want to see and how we can leverage innovation. And then there is SwissNext here in San Francisco.
How many people from SwissNext are with us?
Yes, there are some, right?
Great.
Very good.
Thank you for coming down.
And if you happen to come to Zurich, you should go and visit the Impact Hub. Of course, there is many communities, but I wanted to mention this one because it's one of the liveliest, and also for you, it's the easy access community. It's next to the main station or not far from there, and it has a cafe, and you could see what's going on in the entrepreneurial scene. So everybody could go there. You don't have to sign up, and it's worthwhile. So you guys enjoy it when you come to Zurich. And yeah, I'm happy to help if there is questions, if you would like to find out something specific, if you come to Zurich or Switzerland in general, let me know, and I'm happy to connect you or see how I can help you here.